This is the Rich Dad Radio Show. The good news and bad news about money. Here's Robert Kiyosaki.
Hello, Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Radio Show. The good news and bad news about money. And today a special friend, special guest, but it's also a very important subject. And the subject is, is real estate, basically. And it's important simply because it's real estate. Real estate's in parts of it are in serious trouble right now. But when things are bad, also there's good opportunities for things. So my guest today is dear friend Ken McElroy, real estate expert. How many books how many places in the world have we gone to?
It's been all over the place.
Yeah, we traveled the world. We're talking about real estate because, number one, real estate uses debt. And you may or may not know this, but the U.S. dollar is debt. In other words, money cannot exist unless somebody borrows it. And so all these guys, our friend Dave Ramsey always says, live debt-free. I go, you got to be crazy. But I want to back Dave up. If you don't know how to handle debt, definitely live debt-free. Right, Kenny?
Yes, that's right. I agree. If you don't know what money is and how to use it,
right,
then he's right on.
Right. So, like I said, I met Dave at a restaurant up the street here, and he's a great guy. And his advice for most people is cut up your credit cards, get out of debt, and all this. But Kenny, what's happening in the real estate market today as interest rates go up and all this stuff? I just heard Richard Fisher, the Dallas Fed chairman. He said a unit. I could be wrong on the numbers. 3,500 units. One apartment complex went down.
Yeah, it was actually a big group out of Texas already. Yes.
Oh, you heard about it?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay,
yeah.
good.
I was way ahead of that. We looked at it, actually.
Really?
Yeah, because, solve somebody's problem.
But that's a lot of problem.
Oh, and Blackstone defaulted on debt in New York on a set of buildings. And, we're in the first inning, Robert, still.
Yeah, and I'm afraid it's going to get worse.
Well, you don't have to be afraid about that. It's happening already. It's definitely happening. The issue is this year and next year is going to be what we call maturing debt.
Right.
Debt that's maturing.
Another thing to understand is different types of real estate.
Yep.
Some of the worst properties are the darlings called office buildings. Everybody thought, I'm going to own an office building in Manhattan and all this. And today, they're going to crash. It's going to take people down.
I just read an article today, Robert, that the cities and counties are actually throwing money at developers to convert office buildings into apartments. They already know that those office buildings, are going to be eyesores at some point.
Yeah. I was a student of Dr. R. Buckminster Fuller. They call him the friendly genius. John Denver called him the grandfather of the future because he's a futurist. And years ago in the 80s, I heard him say office buildings will someday be homes for homeless people. I went, what? That was sacrilegious for me back then. And now it's here.
That's quite a prediction, too. That was how long ago was that, 50 years?
50 years ago. I'm listening to this guy who says office buildings will soon be homeless shelters. And you look at the number of homeless is exploding. Now, I don't want to be an owner of a homeless shelter, as you know. And so, Kenny, we're doing this event called Limitless Expo, June 15th and 17th. I'm looking forward to that. But it's especially important to you because it's either going to be the worst of times for real estate or the best of times, right?
Yeah, I tell everybody it's a confusing time for many.
Right.
Some people are not sure what to do. Some people are afraid. Some people are afraid to communicate to their limited partners and general partners and the banks and all that. And so there's a lot of people doing a lot of different things. And hopefully this event will clear some of that up for some people because, as you know, last year we sold out and we have 40 speakers talking about the economy, money, gold, debt, negotiation. Chris Voss is coming. Yeah, Never Split the Difference. One of the greatest books.
Yeah, if you want to, Chris Voss. We studied his books, listened to him all the time, but I've never met the guy in person. So he's going to be at the event.
Yes, he is. I watched him in person. I met him at a YPO event. And I'm like, man, and plus he has a master class. For those of you who might not know, he is the FBI's leading hostage negotiator, and he teaches for the FBI. He teaches at Harvard how to negotiate. And, this is, if you want to negotiate with banks, you better sit in his talk.
So this Limitless Expo, June 15th and 17th. It's here in Phoenix or
Yep.
JW Marriott, Phoenix, Desert Ridge.
Yeah, it's limitlessexpo.com, www.limitlessexpo.com. The 15th is the happy hour, 16th, 17th is actually the events. We have multiple stages, 40 speakers. It's going to be awesome.
All right. Well, I'm looking forward to it. So let's get back into real estate. I said it earlier. The reason about living debt-free makes no sense simply because the fiat currency called the U.S. dollar, the yen, the peso, the euro, they're debt. They're instruments of debt, like a bond is an instrument of debt. And that's why Dave Ramsey saying living debt-free, it kind of goes contraindicative. How can that be if it's debt? But the good thing about debt is it's debt. And on top of that, the more debt you use, the less tax you pay, right?
Right. Well, 3 years ago, Robert, or it might have been 4 now, you were way ahead of this curve. And I don't know if you remember. Well, you probably do remember. You actually did a closed event for us, and it was instead of fight the Fed, be the Fed.
Right, right.
Yeah, and that's so obvious to you, just like Buckminster Fuller. But, it's not obvious to a lot of people. Just do what the Fed's doing.
Yeah. And it's the strangest markets. We're in serious, the world economy is in serious trouble, but it's also a great opportunity time. So again, it's the Limitless Expo, June 15th and 17th, JW Marriott, Phoenix, Desert Ridge. So what's going on in real estate, Kenny? Because, as some of you may know, we use debt all the time, 100% debt.
Yep. So we just locked a deal yesterday, Robert, at 5.2 fixed. So, there's still deals. There's still, there's a big disconnect between the seller and the buyer for sure. And the difference, of course, is the debt price. So the cost of the mortgage, the interest rates have gone up, as we all know. So the interesting thing, the irony is that real estate itself is actually doing pretty well. So highly occupied, slow, steady rent growth. We're seeing some big increases on expenses, but the one big difference is the cost of the debt. So you can't pay as much when your debt costs are higher. You can't pay as much for the same property that, existed 1 year ago.
Right. And the reason Kim and I invest with Kenny, because your partner is a former banker.
Yep, Ross, yeah, the best.
And I tell you, it is a game of debt.
It is.
And so, and real estate selling, Kim and I just sold about 5 pieces of property in the last 2 months.
Yeah, well, you think about it, if you can fix your debt right now, I mean, the rate that we locked yesterday, Robert, is less than inflation.
Yeah.
I mean,
right.
Think about that. We're borrowing at less than inflation. So that's when we talk about money, that's how you do it.
Yeah, and a good thing, too, is the amateurs are now floating to the surface, as they say.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I feel terrible for people because people come up to me and they go, "Oh, I took your advice. I bought real estate." I'm going, "Holy moly!" Real estate's not like a stock. Like you don't just buy real estate like you buy Apple. And the difference is if you buy Apple stock, and let's say it's $10, and it goes down to $6, you can get out of it really quickly. But with real estate, it's not that liquid, and that's why you've got to be smarter. And why I cringe when people say, "Oh, I just jumped into real estate." I'm going, "Oh my God." It's like jumping off a moving train or something. So much is going on in real estate.
There is a lot. And I think what happens is guys like you, or I would say anybody over 50,
has seen it.
Has seen it. They've seen the cycles. They've felt the pain if they made it. Right? Because we've been, but if you're, a lot of people are pretty delusional about, next year's going to be, and it has been for years. Next year's going to be better than last year. It's just not the case.
No. What happened? What happened since 2008? They kept lowering interest rates, and the whole world economy went into a bubble.
Correct.
It was a real estate bubble, a bond bubble, and a stock bubble. And so everything got inflated, but as they started to lower interest rates in 2020, or raise interest rates in 2020, a lot of those bubbles are bursting. So it's good news and bad news. And that's why I recommend people come to Limitless, because there's going to be a lot of opportunities floating.
There's going to be a lot, and there's going to be a lot of people there trying to find answers, and if you guys are interested, last year, there was a lot of discussion around syndication and real estates and deals, et cetera, et cetera. It's going to be that way this year, but I think this year is going to be a little different.
Right.
I think people are going to be trying to figure out, how do I save my deal what do I do next? And, that's fair. I think those we understand that that's where things are. And I mean, we're going to do a panel on the first day with you and George Gammon and Joseph Wang and Chris Martinson. That's going to be unbelievable. Just all four of you guys talking about what you see.
Yeah, and all of us are old guys. The people I caution that you have a financial planner that's at 35, let's say. That financial planner has only known a boom market, because as it dropped interest rates, the market kept going up. So I meet some of the young women and men, they go, oh, yeah. All they know is a good market. But the biggest opportunities float when the bodies start floating. When the bodies start floating to the surface, you go, oh, my God, I can't believe that came up. Oh, my God, look at that. There were so many deals coming up when the fish start to float.
And we're seeing them right now, Robert. I mean, every single Tuesday we have an investment committee call with our analysts and everybody, and they bring these deals. And, we continually say, well, that deal's not really worth even the loan. So we pass. Right. And the irony is that a lot of the limited partners don't even know. So somebody brings us a deal, they're trying to recapitalize it somehow because they're in trouble, but the deal's not even worth what the debt is. Right.
So it's a very exciting time. I can't believe Kim and I just listed some properties.
Yep.
And they went, boom.
Yep.
And everybody else is crying the blues.
It's true.
Yeah. And it goes to the saying, your profit is made when you buy.
Yes, it is.
Not when you sell.
And also the cash flow versus capital gain strategy that you laid out in Rich Dad Poor Dad. People, this is the time where you're going to start to realize that philosophy. That's been our philosophy all along. Everything I have cash flows. And that's just not the case for a lot of people. A lot of people bought big assets on a capital gain strategy. And guess what? That gain is not there.
So capital gain strategies, we call it flipping. When I first met Kenny 20-something years ago, everybody was into flipping. The show flipped this house and all this. So you buy a property for, let's say, $10,000. It goes up to $15,000. You flip it, you net $5,000.
Yep.
But you pay capital gains.
Yep.
And we don't do that.
Correct. And if you take that even further, if you buy a 200-unit property at $20 million and you think it's going to be $25 million, it's the same thing. The problem is it's not worth $25 million. It's probably worth $18 million. So you buy it for $20, it's now worth $18 million. That's where the problem is.
Yeah, I'm chuckling because there's the world's full of real estate gurus.
Yeah.
If you're a housewife or a husband and you bought two real estate properties, you're now Donald Trump as far as you're concerned.
Right.
But there's some of these charlatans on YouTube that I've got into arguments with some of them. This guy says the way you get rich, just go out and buy a 200-unit apartment house. And I said, you don't start with a 200-unit apartment house, idiot.
No.
That's suicide.
Yeah.
But that's what he was selling. And I know the trick is called a bait and switch. So you go there, he shows you how you too can buy a 200-unit apartment house for like nothing down and all this other stuff, but you're on the hook for millions. And then you go roaring off and try to do it. His real gimmick is to sell you what he is selling.
Of course, yeah. Oh, you can't do it? I can do it for you.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's why it's called the Limitless Expo, June 15th and 17th. I strongly, highly recommend it because there'd be no better time than now to get ready for what's coming.
Yep.
As the bodies start to float and some of the best deals start to float. So we come back, we'll continue on talking to Kenny McElroy and get a bigger picture of it. It's frightening times, but it's also exciting times.
It's actually very exciting.
Yeah. Always remember your profit is made when you buy. And then one of the things I really get kind of sad about people, when real estate started going up, everybody started jumping in.
Yeah, remember that?
Yeah. And that's not when you jump in, not when it's going up. You want to ride that roller coaster down and then buy.
Right. When there's a line out the door of people trying to buy the asset, that means it's over.
Yeah, it's so exciting right now. So we come back, we're talking more about what you can do. Even though the market is horrible for real or getting worse, I'm selling like I'm not selling it for I needed the cash. We had to move some other properties. But I cannot believe the opportunities are floating to the surface. So when you come back, we'll be talking to Kenny McElroy at Limitless Expo, June 15th and 17th, JW Marriott, Phoenix, Desert Ridge. And I can't believe we got Chris Voss, man. He is amazing.
Yes, and Dennis Prager.
Dennis Prager, I was talking to one guy. Dennis and I were in Gamage Auditorium in Arizona State, and the guy says, "God, that Dennis was great." I said, well, I was on stage with him. Do you remember me? No. Prager, when he speaks, he's amazing.
He is. Yeah, I can't wait. I actually haven't met him.
Right. He's a great guy.
Yep.
So, okay, we'll be right back with Kenny McElroy and the Limitless Expo, June 15th and 17th, JW Marriott Ridge in Arizona. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Radio Show, the good news and bad news about money. And as many of you know, the economy is on shaky grounds. Banks are failing all over the place. And the question is, what do you do about it? And I get really, really excited because your profits are made when you buy. And as prices of real estate crash, it's actually the best time to be a buyer. But as I say it again, I meet people who are amateurs at this business. They wait, the price. Oh, the price went on 100,000, went up 200,000. Oh, we got buyers lined up for the property, and that's when people jump in. You should be getting out at that moment if you want to get out. So we have Kenny McElroy here. Tell us more about this event, Kenny.
Oh, well, gosh, it's www.limitlessexpo.com. As you know, you were there last year, Robert. It was amazing. We sold out, and we're expecting 2,000 people. We have over 40 speakers. Dennis Prager, of course, yourself. We got Chris Voss. I can't wait to see what he has to say. But we also have a bunch of notable others, too. Joseph Wang, who worked at the Fed. We got George Gammon. You got Mark Moss. You got Chris Martenson. All, of course, are solid people. We're all trying to figure out the same thing everybody's talking about. What do we do next? How do we cover what we have today? And what moves should we make? And that's why we put this event together. It's to study together and learn together.
Right. Another thing, too, is that people say, well, I don't have money and all this. When the real estate market crashed, it's crashed several times.
Yep.
And I had no money. And I started trying to put a deal together with interest rates were 12%. And today's what percent are they today?
Yeah, it's more like 5 to 6.
And people come, I would have killed back then for a 5 to 6% interest rate. So, it's always a good time, but you have to know what you're doing with real estate.
Yeah, well, almost every single real estate person that you're going to listen to didn't start with money.
No.
I mean, we rarely do. You don't actually need money to start. You need a deal, and that's what you'll learn.
Well, even worse than that, my rich dad always said to me, he said, only lazy people use their own money.
I know. Gosh, that was such a great statement. It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, people don't realize, like, when you put your money with an insurance or a pension or even in a bank, it's a liability for those institutions, period. They owe you expense, in the form of interest. That's a problem for them. So they have to lend it to guys like us.
Right.
And that's called OPM, or other people's money. And you're going to learn things like that at the event.
Yeah. And always remember this, the U.S. dollar or the euro and all these other currencies, they come into existence only by people borrowing it.
Yes.
And that's why our friend Dave Ramsey says live debt-free. And that's good advice if you don't know what you're doing. But you come to this event, the Limitless event, to find out what to do, because I'm excited about it. There's so many deals floating right now, but you have to know what you do. And if you say, I don't have any money, well, you silly person. You're not supposed to use your own money anyway. You're supposed to always use OPM, right?
That's 100% right. And also, in the form of debt and equity. Money's money. Nobody cares what it's called. It just is a different price.
So let me attempt to explain what Kenny does for Kim and myself. Because what Kenny does is very sophisticated. You can do it too, but you have to have Kenny's background to do what he does, because he started from property management, and the key is always the management of the
100%.
And so the way we did it was, I forget the numbers, but let's say it was $300,000 deal. It was an apartment house. So where are the people that put up the equity? So Kim and I, let's say it's $300,000. We put up, $30,000.
Right.
You borrow the money. The rest of to pay from the bank to pay for the property.
Correct.
And then what Kenny does, he fixes the property. And this is Kenny's niche. He makes the property more valuable. The equity of the property goes up, and then we borrow out the equity.
That's correct. Yeah. if you can spot a deal where there's value in it and then know how to create it, you can raise lots of money. Imagine, you can't do that with a stock. I love it. I always tell people, sometimes I bought a vacant building, had it in escrow, got a tenant before I closed. That's how you create value.
Right. So it's going to be an exciting time. Like I said, I still remember putting deals together. Interest rates were 12%. And you have to get smarter. That's all it means.
That's the thing. I tell everybody, I actually was on a podcast yesterday. I said my entire career was 5, 6, and 7% interest rates. So right now seems very, very normal to me. The only problem is that the prices are high. And the sellers now are starting to realize that because there's almost no transactions going on. So, that's all. It's the bubble went up, now it's coming down.
Right. The people that are in trouble, the people who jumped in late. Do you know what I mean? They were the top of the market. So it's going to keep going up. That's a big lie, is that real estate always goes up. That's not true at all.
No, my gosh. It's delusion. It's that herd mentality, right? Everybody's jumping on, I'm going to miss out and next year's going to be better than last year. That's not how real estate works.
No. And I'll tell you something. Real estate guys have funny stories, but years and years ago, I was in Thailand. And this office building came up for sale. And the guy said, "That's a deal." I think it was like $4 million or something. I went, what am I going to do with this $4 million office building? Because it was empty. And I came back a year later and said, "Yeah, some guy bought it." He said, "What'd you do with it?" So the guy turned it into a whorehouse. I went, oh my God. I said, well, it's a different tenant.
Yeah, that's a different strategy.
And the guy was making money hand over fist. So it was the same building, and as my Dr. R. Buckminster Further said to us, he says, office buildings will someday be homes for the homeless.
Plenty of tenants, just lots of cash.
Yeah. So that's why real estate is one of the most sophisticated investment strategies, and that's why I recommend coming to Limitless, because the reason it's called Limitless is, Kenny, what's an infinite return on your investment?
So infinite return is quite simple. Let's say Robert and Kim give me $1 million. I pair it up with another 9. We buy a $10 million property. I grow the value to 15. I go to the bank and I put another $10 million loan on it. I give the 9 back to the original debt holder or the bank, give you your $1 million. We're into the deal for 0. That's an infinite return.
Right. And Kenny, so let's say Kim and I put $1 million in, which is pretty much normal for us. We get that money back via debt.
Yes,
and it's tax-free money.
Yeah, because you don't pay tax on debt. So we're taking new debt, replacing old debt and equity, and that's a return of capital. It's not capital gain, and it's not a sale.
So the genius of Kenny is he's not like one of these fund managers that, this is for me and the rest is for me too. I mean, when Kenny talks about the infinite return, his investors get an infinite return also because they borrow out the gains.
That's right.
And when you borrow out the gains, there's no tax on debt.
You got it.
Interesting world, isn't it?
There's no sale. So the IRS wants their tax when you sell something. We're not selling. We're refinancing. It's just no different than a cash out refinancing your own home.
Right. And I've walked properties with Kenny and all this. My favorite one's the one in San Antonio next to Geico Insurance Company and next to hospitals. Somebody was 400 something units, I think.
It was actually 680 units. There were 400 vacant. If you can remember, I was like, all right, this is going to be, and Robert's like, what are you doing? Why are you buying this? And I'm like, listen, this is what you want. It was owned by the bank. The old owner is out, and it's just a mess. And again, solve someone's problem. And I was like, I can solve your problem.
And it was the bank's problem.
It was the bank's problem.
So I remember walking into this unit in San Antonio. I was afraid I was going to get attacked by the killer rats. It was so bad. And what the original owner did was he screwed the bank. He stripped the property. He took all the wire out. He took everything out. It was basically a deserted building except for 200 more units.
It happens at the end, believe it or not, at the end of a real estate cycle where people are struggling to try to just fill units. They actually cannibalize other units with appliances and thermostats and things like that just to try to get cash flow from something else. It's unfortunately the very end of the cycle.
Yeah. I still remember walking the deal with Kenny. I said, man, it's going to be a rat attack on me, and I have to get fumigated. And this place is so, you could tell it was one time a great project.
And now it is again.
Yeah, and the guy had torn it apart.
Yep.
But the reason I almost ran from the project is burned in my brain. Some tenant had tore the toilet out and put the toilet in front of the fireplace.
Yeah.
So to this guy, I could see him sitting there, not paying rent, sitting on the toilet, burning paper and stuff to stay warm.
You never know. You never know in these places sometimes.
And Kenny said, "This is a great deal." I'm going, "Oh my God." So ladies and gentlemen, it's called the Limitless Expo. It's actually infinite. It's infinite. You can make money with no money. And when you can do that, that's called alchemy. That's magic.
Right.
And what Kenny does is magic. I can vouch from the reason I stopped buying real estate was I'd just rather give my money to Kenny. Let's say I give him $1 million. A couple of years later, I get the $1 million back, tax-free. If you can understand those thoughts, you'll understand why I'm very excited about a real estate crash.
That's right. That's right. And for your listeners, if they're interested in going, they can use the code RichDad. They get 20%. So RichDad, just limitlessexpo.com and type in RichDad, and you get a 20% discount if they're interested.
Yeah. And as I said, my dealing with Ken about 25 years now changes my life because it changes your thought.
Yeah. Well, you look at everything differently.
Right. So Kenny and I, we also practice what we preach. We study also. We were just in Dallas, outside of Dallas, and we called the place called the Ranch. And the instructor said the reason people are poor is because they're farther from the truth.
Yeah, that really hit me.
Yeah.
So there's what they said. But we were studying mastery. What they said was, the truth is what the truth is. Period. And so now I know that sounds pretty simple, and then you got people's realities, which is typically further from the truth. Not always, but the further from the truth you get, the poorer they are.
Yeah. So ever since the last couple of weeks, I see a poor person. I said, wonder what truth they're away from.
Yes.
There's something they're not seeing.
Correct.
And that's when I wrote Rich Dad Poor Dad 25 years ago. I said, your house is not an asset. I nearly got crucified on the cross for that one.
Yeah, now everybody says it. I know, it's the truth. You're way ahead of the game.
So again, it's called limitless, but it's also infinite. You don't need money to make money.
It's true.
You have to have the brain power, the team, your friends. So that's why you come to this event, Limitless Expo, June 15, 16, and 17 here in Phoenix, Arizona. Once again, the promo code is RichDad.
RichDad, yep.
And you get 20% discount.
That's correct.
And I'll be there. And the cocktail party starts on the 15th.
Yep, cocktail party at night, and then full on, 20 speakers a day, both Friday, both Saturday. Friday and Saturday. And, you got Prager, you got yourself, you got Chris Voss, we got Chris Martinson, George Gammon, all kinds of really, really, really good speakers.
Right. And just to let you know, I go there to learn also.
Correct.
I'm not one of these speakers that rolls in and does my 45 minutes and out. I go there to learn from the other speakers.
You last year you were there the entire time, just like me, sitting there listening to everybody. Because there's a lot of smart people in that room.
Oh my God.
In the audience too, by the way. I mean, the people that came was a high net worth, accredited investor type people that were trying to figure out what move to do next, and also where they can save themselves if they're in some kind of a deal. Yeah,
the best thing you go there also is you want to meet people like you.
Correct.
Do you know what I mean? There's nothing worse than hanging out with a toad. No, do you know what I mean? Like, oh, I told you real estate was bad; it crashed. Oh, I told you, I don't want to buy real estate because you have to clean toilets and all this stuff. I hear all of that stuff, but that's what we learned last week in Dallas. The poorer you are is because you're furthest from
the truth. Yeah.
And when they tell you get out of debt, that's really not the truth.
Boy, it was interesting because remember we were down there with Dr. Nicole, and she said, it's the same with health. The further you are from the truth around health, the worse condition you're in. So the truth is it's a very interesting thing, and the reality or your perspective or even your opinion can be very far away from the truth.
Right. And some of the truths, reason people are poor is, well, I don't have any money. I can't afford it. That is not true.
That is exactly right. It is not true.
That's your opinion of your measly little self.
Yeah.
You have the power to do what you want to do, but that's why I go to Kenny's event, is really limitless. It's an unlimited return. It's an infinite return. You don't need money to make money, right?
100% true.
So if you understand that, we'll be right back and we'll tell you more about what to expect at Limitless Event Expo, June 15th, 16th, and 17th here in Arizona, Phoenix, Arizona. Right back. Welcome back. Robert Kiyosaki, The Rich Dad Radio Show. We're sitting here with my dear friend Ken McElroy. We're here promoting his event, which I'm going to go to speak at, but I also go to attend.
Yes.
Because you've got to keep learning today.
I know. Well, you're a big part of this event. I mean, you and I are like, who do we want to have come and speak at this event? You know, we got Prager, who you do some stuff with. We got Chris Voss, who we've done some stuff with. Like, these are all people that we've studied.
Right. Plus the really real estate guys. You know what I mean? The guys who actually do real estate.
Correct.
And it's such an exciting time. But as you may know, the world's in serious trouble because our banks are in trouble.
They very much are. And people, there's a lot of people that say that we're at the very beginning of that.
So I have a couple questions for Kenny actually either of you. So yesterday, big text thread going on between staff, my family, and this is not specific to Limitless, but more home buyers with good credit are now going to pay a higher mortgage rate than those with.
Can you believe that?
Under 650.
Unbelievable.
They're now subsidizing.
They are.
Tell us about that, if you could.
Oh, it pisses me off. I just saw it yesterday myself. I can't believe it. Basically, they're saying if you have good credit, you're going to subsidize those that don't have it.
So wouldn't this put us back where we were sort of in 2008 when they were giving loans to those that really couldn't afford them or pay them back?
It sure is looking like that. Absolutely. Yeah, it's going to be, the thing is it doesn't affect the commercial real estate market at all, as you know, but it affects the, single family a lot. So anything where they're using your actual credit, it's just a crazy, crazy thing that I can't even believe that it came out.
And if you're an investor in single family homes, if that's your thing, this could be an opportunity coming down the line, essentially. I mean, that's kind of a thing to look at, right?
I would absolutely agree. Yeah. It's, I honestly, every time I see something coming out of the Biden administration, I just scratch my head. I mean, this is just one of so many things. I just don't understand the logic around it because we all grew up trying to reach for good credit. Everyone. Our parents pounded away on us. Our parents had that, so this is like, the script got flipped somehow. I don't know how. I didn't see it coming.
And so this news to me broke yesterday. It could have come out, weeks ago, but it goes into effect May 1st. Yeah. So this is something I feel like sneaky anyway, developing that we should keep an eye on, see what happens.
100%.
And that brings me to my second question is we know with a crash, Robert talks about this all the time, brings opportunities. What are you seeing in the next, year to 3 years as like the biggest area of opportunity for an investor?
Yeah. So I definitely don't think that we're going to be able to fix inflation for a while.
No.
So that's number one. So you got to be really careful. We never really had to think about that too much, right? Inflation's been low and, it slowly eroded our purchasing power, but now it's different. The gloves are off. So I think that's number one. So you can't just put your head in the sand because if we're going to be at 5-6% inflation, I mean, you're talking about 15, 20, 30%, reduction of your purchasing power in just a few years. So that's the first thing. So you have to figure out how can I hedge myself against inflation? And that could be lots of things. But, what's going to grow with inflation? It doesn't necessarily have to be real estate. It can be anything. So debt is certainly one of those things.
I thought there was going to be a big problem in real estate, but Kim and I had a property, and we had up for sale for $9.75 million. And the realtor says it'll never sell. It's sold immediately.
Yeah.
And the reason is what happens with inflation, your cash becomes trash.
Yep. Well, you got your advice from a realtor.
Well, and to your point, and I think Kenny opened the show with this, is that he just did a deal with a 5.2 fixed. That's lower than inflation. So if you can find those deals and work that in,
Yep.
And then it doesn't really matter what asset it is
Yes.
if the deal works.
Plus, Sarah, another really good point. Not only are you borrowing less than inflation, but you also get all the tax benefits and the depreciation, all
Absolutely.
those things, the free cash flow, tax free. So all of that comes with it as well.
But also the reason the realtor finally said, we misjudged this market. $10 million, it's a residential property. It's pretty nice one in Hawaii. And the reason the person bought it is they'd rather have their cash sitting in a piece of real estate than in the bank.
You got it.
Yep.
And
What
so
does that tell you?
Yeah. So, that's why what Kenny and I were just at the ranch with Dr. Nicole Shutnicki, the farther from the truth you are, the poorer you are. And the biggest lie ever told is it takes money to make money. That is not true. Right, Kenny?
Correct. It does not. You don't need money. You just need to see whatever you see, and then the money flows in.
Yeah. And, don't worry about being the skipper of the Titanic. I've been the skipper a number of times, but it's always a good swimming experience. But that's how you get smarter.
Right.
I almost say this much, I've never lost money in real estate. I got in trouble. But when you scramble and you do what you have to do, you get smarter and smarter and smarter. And you go, man, I'm really glad I got into this trouble because I got smarter. What reason I say that, the average person is drinking the Kool-Aid. They just go to school, get a job, save money, get out of debt, and invest in a 401k or an IRA. You don't learn anything that way.
Well, yeah.
You don't learn anything. So by jumping in as an idiot investor, you get smarter pretty quickly, right, Kenny?
Yeah, I love Buffett's quote. He's like, when the tide goes out, you see who's swimming naked. And the tide is going out right now, my friends.
And there's going to be a lot of opportunity.
Yep. And you said the bodies are floating to the top. It's true. They are. Like that big portfolio of properties in Texas already went down. It's the beginning.
How many units was in that?
I can't remember. It's 3,000 or 4,000.
Can you imagine that?
Yes, I can, because I follow those. I follow those deals. I follow how they bought them. I follow the debt that they put on there and what they are doing afterwards. And yes, so for me, it was no surprise.
So the last question is: a lot of people are they're upside down, and they're the ones floating in the water right
Yes,
now.
and they don't. Some of them don't even know.
So you might have bought too high, might have the right structure and all this stuff, wrong state, all the other stuff. So if somebody comes to your Limitless Expo, June 15th, 16th, and 17th, will they get any ideas how they can fix their problem?
Well, I think, yes, every problem is completely unique. But let's put it this way. There's thousands and thousands of people coming. There were thousands last year. I can tell you that the people just speaking can probably help them. But certainly people in the audience, too. We have some very sophisticated folks there coming, as you know, Robert. And yes, so I don't know how badly of a situation they're in, but certainly that's part of this is access to people like me, access to people like you, access to people like George Gammon and Kathy Fetke and Rich Fetke and some really, really, really sharp real estate investors.
Right, and that's where you come. You come to get smarter. I'm going there to get smarter. So I'll just finish this up with the poor people are furthest from the truth. That is I've been thinking about that. Have you been thinking about it?
Of course, when they said it, it's very interesting. You have to wrap your head around it, but it's actually true. And what they did is they put a dot in the middle and said, "This is the truth. In all cases, the truth." And then what happens is, as you get further and further away from the truth, it actually affects your health, your wealth, all kinds of things. The further and what happens is you're the one that has a reality or a perception or an opinion of where you are.
And the reason that's the perfect ending is because Rich Dad and Poor Dad. My poor dad said, "Oh, I can't afford it. We can't do that. You think I'm made of money on that?" My poor dad was so far away from the truth. And so when I hear somebody say, "Well, I can't do it because I don't have any money," my rich dad side, my poor dad, I can't afford it. My rich dad slapped me on the head. He goes, he didn't really slap me. He said, "You stupid kid. You're not supposed to use your money anyway."
Yeah.
If you can understand that, that's why you want to come to Limitless Expo, June 15th, 16th, and 17th. Thank you all.
Thank you, guys.
hip.